All right, guys, welcome to episode 44 of Press X Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here, and as usual, waiting patiently to let more people file in and giving me a little bit of extra time to get everything sorted out so we can hopefully have the smoothest possible podcast experience. So thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate all the support you've been showing me recently on the channel. Today we have a lot of really good stuff to talk about. It's very exciting stuff, I think. Maybe some very concerning stuff as well, at least when it comes to Cyberpunk 2077. That is obviously something that we have to talk about during this podcast. I understand that my title here and my thumbnail, some people are going to get upset about it. Hopefully, if you are somebody listening to this who is a little bit upset and you think I'm maybe being a little bit overly aggressive, you will hear me out, listen to what I have to say, because it's not all bad. I do think that there is certainly some truth, though, to my title and thumbnail. It's a bit, hyperbolic. Yes, I agree. But hey, there's a lot going on, or maybe not enough going on, depending on how you look at it, the time of the year. So I'm just trying to keep up the excitement and, keep it a little bit spicy, I guess, if that's the terminology you want to use. But yeah, guys, for those of you who are here right now, make sure you hit that like button. For those who are watching after the fact, hit that like button. It really helps the podcast out more than you know. It's pretty important when it comes to the entire YouTube algorithm thing. So yeah, I'm going to first give a shout out to some of my channel members, and then I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what we're going to be discussing over the course of this podcast. So give me a second to bring this up here. So if you are not aware, you can become a channel member. It is an option that is there for you. If that's something you would like to do, it's a way for you to help support me directly. And I do have a few different membership tiers. And so we have the Play Has No Limits Plus membership tier. Massive shout out to Junior Jackson, TamTam1982X, and D Luffy. You guys are going above and beyond to help support what I do here directly, and it does not go unnoticed. Thank you guys so much. But then we also have Play Has No Limits. So big shout out to Brandon Chad Perez, Matt Wheatley, Alpha Acer, Brittany Goes Meow, Adrian Pollard, Sayin JT, Texas Juggalo 1, Jeffrey Hicks, Big Norman 0518, Michael Bradley, and Tyson Webb 509. Thank you guys so much. All of you in these tiers are going above and beyond to help support this channel directly. I couldn't do what I do here if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you so much for that. And so let me give you a quick rundown of what we're going to be discussing over the course of this podcast, because we do have a lot we're going to be talking about, and I think it's going to make for some interesting conversation. So the first thing we're going to be discussing is Cyberpunk 2077. More specifically, though, we're going to be taking a different angle this time around, where I want to talk about why the situation is seemingly so bad for CD Projekt Red as well as Cyberpunk 2077, and why, and I'm actually trying my best to spin it into a positive here, why this may actually be a good thing, and why it actually makes even Xbox, yes, that's right, I know, it sounds like blasphemy here on this channel, it even makes Xbox as a game publisher look really, really good. But man, does it give you a new appreciation for the way Sony approaches video game publishing. But that's not to say that Sony and Microsoft are perfect or have been perfect in the past. That's obviously far from the truth. But I do think that there are some positives to be derived from this entire situation, not just, when it comes to Microsoft and Sony, but in general within the gaming industry as well. So we're going to have an extensive conversation about that. I also want to talk about our expectations going into 2021. And to be honest, there's going to be one more podcast before the end of the year. I'm going to try my best to make that podcast happen. It may be very difficult to do so if there's just simply nothing to talk about, because we are, approaching Christmas and New Year's and whatnot. So right now it's up in the air. If I feel as though there is enough to talk about, we will do one more episode before the year ends. But either way, I thought that we would talk about our expectations going into next year, because I think a lot of us have some very high expectations. Time Tells No Lies 90, you're saying Consumer Punked 2077. Yeah. That's, I don't know, man. I don't know. The consumer definitely did not win in this scenario for sure. But neither did the publisher. It's a lose-lose situation ultimately. So we're going to be talking about our expectations. I want to have like a deep discussion about, how many events can we expect next year? Is E3 going to be coming back next year? Will Sony be at E3 next year? What games are they going to announce? What games can we expect to be playing within the first half of 2021? The last half. We're going to talk about all that. And I also want to talk about the PlayStation 5 potentially becoming the next PlayStation 2, because there is some evidence that is starting to kind of pop up. There has been some evidence before this console launched, but now there's even more now that it's actually out here, that the PS5 could go on to either match or potentially even surpass the PlayStation 2. And we all know that the PlayStation 2 is the best-selling console of all time, the greatest console of all time in the eyes of many. So we're going to talk about that. We could, there's a lot of people who look at the PS2 as like the golden age of console gaming, but I think that we may be approaching a new golden age potentially. Mr. Hamster, you're saying, sad you've not played it. Now I can't post my MVG 2077 art. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll play Cyberpunk. I'll talk a little bit about that, whether I actually plan to play it or not. Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying, am I late for the feet pics? Yeah, you are, man. I just had them up, just 2 minutes ago, and you weren't here, man. So you missed your chance. You missed your chance. No, but thank you guys for those super chats. And then we're also going to be talking later on in the podcast about God of War Ragnarok, because I just want to have a conversation about this game, what our expectations are. Is this going to be a massive AAA title, like a proper full-blown sequel to God of War 2018, or is it possible that it could be a $40 Spider-Man Miles Morales-like experience? Sony did talk recently about how they're going to be doing more of that going into this generation. And I also want to talk about our expectations for cross-gen gaming and how it seems that because of the situation with the scalpers, as well as how well the PS4 sold, we could see a situation where cross-gen gaming is, maybe sticks around for longer than we were anticipating. And then at the end of the podcast, if it's not, going too long, I do want to talk a little bit about my experience with Demon's Souls, because I did finally complete Demon's Souls. I beat it. It was tough. It was not easy, but I definitely have some thoughts on that. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And if we have time, we'll end with a Q&A with the chat, as we usually do. Sometimes I don't do it because I don't want the podcast to go on too long. But yeah, once again, guys, hit that like button. We are going to be diving into the first topic. My mouse seems to be dying here, so give me a second to sort this out so I can actually bring up the gameplay. Yeah, you're going to see some Demon's Souls gameplay in the background once again, because that's the game I've been playing mostly. I plan to fully dive into Spider-Man Miles Morales now that I have completed Demon's Souls. Spider-Man Miles Morales is a game that I played a little bit of, but believe it or not, I haven't completed it because I don't know. I prefer to just play one game at a time. I do struggle if I try to like balance a bunch of different games. So yeah, all right. Diving into the first topic, Cyberpunk 2077. This Cyberpunk situation is so bad that it makes Xbox look good. And frankly, it makes Sony look like gods. And not just Sony, actually. Other publishers as well, such as Rockstar Games. Well, I don't know. Is Rockstar a publisher? I think they're just the developer. Take-Two publishes their games. But still, this situation truly does make them look like gods. I know that is a loaded statement, but this entire situation got me thinking about publishers, mainly Microsoft and Sony. Microsoft and Sony have had their fair share of screw-ups in the past, and, we can't act like that they've never made mistakes like this. But at this point in time, I have to say, this really does make you realize how Microsoft absolutely made the right call in delaying Halo Infinite, especially knowing that they're giving it an entire year of development. But man, doesn't this just really make you appreciate Sony as a game publisher even more so than before? Because I just get this feeling that, people they get comfortable, right? Like they kind of take it for granted. They take the fact that Sony is keeping their games as high quality as they are. They're setting the bar so high. I've seen some people argue with me. They're like, look, MBG, you're completely wrong on this one. Because the truth of the matter is Sony could never make a game in size, scale, or scope that we see with Cyberpunk 2077. And I call BS on this one. I think that's a cop-out. Because first of all, we have to understand that Cyberpunk 2077, one of its downfalls is just that. It's size, scale, and scope. There's a reason why this game has been in development for like 12 years. There's a reason why it has released in this state that we find it in. And size, scale, and scope, in general, ambition is a reason for that. I, more than most people, want to see the most ambitious games that we can get, but there are limits. And this is where you have to look at management. You have to look at the management team over at CD Projekt Red. And this is where you clearly see just how important having competent management really is. I mean, you need competent management in any field, but especially when you look at video game development, you're talking about, millions and billions of dollars. You're talking about years of work that may, be in vain. And that's why developers right now are fuming. They're going to revolt against their management over at CD Projekt Red, because you're talking about developers who spent years of their life, working on this game, putting everything into it. And because management basically said, well, we don't care if you can hit this deadline, make it happen. We don't care if the game is unfinished. We're going to release it anyway. Now there's, millions of gamers who are just never going to touch this game or just have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to this game, as well as the studio, all because they weren't willing to delay the game. And this is why I put the title the way I did, because yes, Microsoft could have been in the exact same situation with Halo Infinite that we see with, Cyberpunk 2077. But they were wise enough. I will give Microsoft credit where it's due, where they had their management, even though they have had their fair share of mistakes, they were wise enough to know, yeah, we can't release this game. We need to listen to the developers. We need to listen to the community, and the backlash is there. The big difference, I'd say, between Microsoft's situation and CD Projekt Red's situation is that Microsoft, in a way, because their showing was so poor, it worked in their favor, where the backlash could be so clear, like it was impossible not to hear it. You know what I mean? To whereas with Cyberpunk, I think the biggest mistake they made was not showing a proper gameplay demo of this game running on console, running on a base PS4 or even a PS4 Pro. Because if they did that, and I'm sure that they knew this, if they did that, the backlash would have been swift, it would have been severe, and boy, this game would have been delayed very quickly, at least on console. So, we could have seen that exact situation happen with Microsoft and Halo Infinite, but because they said, yeah, let's show this gameplay demo. We think it's good enough and we think it's fine. And I'm sure the developers were well aware that it probably wasn't up to the standard that people were hoping for. And they were like, you know what, we got to delay the game. And some people were thinking that they were just going to delay the game for like 3 months, maybe 6 months. But no, apparently they're targeting a holiday 2021 release. And again, I have to give credit where it's due here. I think that was the right move by Microsoft. And I feel like this is where you see the benefit of delays. I think we can all agree that Cyberpunk 2077 would have benefited greatly if it was delayed, at least on console. It's still very buggy on PC. There's still a lot of glitches on PC, even though that's the best way to experience. But still, that console experience, I mean, Sony freaking took the game off the store, for God's sakes. Brett Williams, thank you so much for that super chat, buddy. You're saying, hey, MBG, Merry Christmas. Sorry it isn't much, but I'm trying to give my favorite creators a few extra bucks. Hope your holiday is awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, man. That's not a small amount by any means. I appreciate any support that is thrown my way here on the channel. $10 donation is significant in my eyes. So thank you so much for that, man. Merry Christmas to you as well. And I hope you have a great holiday. And that goes for everybody. I hope you all have a great holiday. I hope everything's going well. I got some stuff going on personally behind the scenes. Things are a little bit tough right now, but I do look forward to doing this podcast with you guys because it does help, make the entire situation easier to deal with. And so, really appreciate that, guys. Really do appreciate that. But I feel like this entire situation with Cyberpunk, believe it or not, I think it's a good thing. I know that sounds crazy, and I know people are like, how could you say that? The game is in shambles. CD Projekt Red as a studio is in shambles. I say this is a good thing because Cyberpunk 2077 is going to go down in video game history. Many thought it was going to be the game of, the century. The greatest game of all time. And I think that the higher-ups over there at CD Projekt Red, even they believe this. Their ambition was so great that they thought this is going to be the greatest game. And, they were out here talking about a multiplayer game for Cyberpunk that they're going to develop, and that's going to be a full-blown AAA game. They're talking about DLC, and I think it's pretty obvious why they decided not to talk about the DLC before the game launched. They were planning on doing that, but then they decided, actually, we're going to talk about it later. Now we know why. To see a game, I don't know, because to be honest, I have not been following Cyberpunk close enough to know what has caused this game to seemingly reach this new height, this height that we just haven't seen before in terms of just pure hype and expectation. I think it's the fault of both the gamer as well as the publisher. But we need to be honest here and admit that the publisher is more at fault for the situation we're seeing right now. Again, we should have something like the alarms should have been sounding when we heard that they refused to give review copies for people who wanted to play it on console. That said it all. On top of that, they made it so that when we saw the reviews of this game, they would not allow, reviewers to show their own footage. It was B-roll footage that they were given. That is the most shady thing I've ever heard. And this is why there's lawsuits apparently being filed now, because that is just that it doesn't get any more shady than that. And, people have been saying, well, what about all of the other broken games we've seen in the past? Guys, this is why I'm saying this is a good thing. To see a game of this magnitude made an example of, to see Sony come out here and be like, yeah, we're taking this off our store. And sure, you could say, well, how come in the past, Sony, you didn't take Drive Club? I don't know. Did they delist Drive Club? I don't think they did. Maybe they did. You guys can let me know. But what about Drive Club? What about No Man's Sky? What about more recent games like Fallout 76 and the Avengers? Let's be clear right now, guys. Okay, let's be clear right now. Sony is not in control of everything. Okay, it's not Sony's job to make sure that these publishers are putting out finished games. And Sony has a lot to gain alongside these publishers. Make no mistake about it. I give Sony a lot of credit for, having the balls basically to do something like this, to basically say, get it out of here. Get it out of here. And people are like, oh, this is Sony just crying because they don't want to deal with the refunds. No, what CD Projekt Red did is messed up. CD Projekt Red came out here without apparently talking to Sony, was like, you can request a refund. And Sony's like, what the, your problem is not my problem, buddy. It's not my fault you guys released a broken, unfinished game. And so you want to throw all of these people our way and have our phones blown up, because everybody and their mother is going to be requesting a refund? No, we're not dealing with that. We're taking it off the store. Think twice before you throw all that hate our way, and just make that our responsibility. You see what I'm saying? And you could say, well, you're saying Drive Club was delisted. Okay, I thought it was. I knew that this was not the first time Sony ever did that. And that goes to show that, Sony has a damn standard here, and especially when it comes to their first party. And this is a standard that, frankly, all publishers should have. And it's just a basic standard of, I know this sounds shocking to some people, but the basic, simplistic standard of make sure your game is not broken. Make sure it is at least functional. right? Like there's going to be some glitches, there's going to be some bugs. It's gaming. I think it's unrealistic to expect a game to be perfection out of the gate. That doesn't mean we shouldn't expect something to be polished. We certainly should, especially if we're paying for that. But, I think that we have to find this decent middle ground. And that's the real problem here, guys, is that there are publishers who are unwilling to find that middle ground, and I'm glad Sony did this because you better believe that CD Projekt Red is losing a lot of money right now. They just lost a ton of sales, and PlayStation is they're the big dog right now when it comes to the console side of things. They're just as big, in my opinion, as the PC marketplace. I mean, when you look at how many games they sell, the lucrative potential on the PlayStation Store is sky high, and this is hurting CD Projekt Red significantly. Like that's like the worst thing that could have happened to them, where Sony's like, yeah, we're not, get this off our store. You're not selling this on here. And people are like, well, how come they didn't do this to Fallout? And you know what? Maybe they should have. Again, you guys have to understand that Sony doesn't want to do this. The difference between Fallout and Cyberpunk, though, is Bethesda didn't, as far as I know, somebody please let me know if I'm wrong, because that's a situation I didn't follow very closely at the time. As far as I know, Bethesda did not come out here and basically say, oh, if you want a refund, just go request it. They'll give it to you. And basically just put that on Sony and Microsoft. I don't think they did that. Maybe they did. Again, you guys can fact check me and let me know. But I'm telling you, that's what caused Sony to basically get pissed off. And, you woke up the sleeping giant, and Sony's like, okay, you want to throw this problem our way? You want to make it seem like we're the bad guys because we're not giving refunds to literally everybody who asks it because it's against our policy, which I do agree that I think Sony's policy can be a bit rigid for sure. But that's when they wake up and they say, you know what? We're just not going to sell your game until it's fixed. There. How about that? Problem solved. So we don't have to deal with the stress, and you guys don't have to worry about, us being a problem, I guess, and getting in the way of your refunds. Josh Z, you're saying, I wonder if physical copies of the game are going to start filling landfills like E.T. back several decades ago. That was just the worst game ever made, but the situation is eerily similar. Yeah, it is, man. It is. Believe it or not, the situation is more similar than people might think. I don't think it's going to get to that extreme. I mean, it might. I'm sure there's going to be some people out there really trying to go above and beyond to make an example of this game, but yeah, Josh, we could see a situation where people are just like, nope. I will tell you, this has ruined CD Projekt Red's reputation, absolutely tarnished it to the point where there is permanent damage that is being done right now that is irreversible. And we also have MH upgrading your membership to Play Has No Limits. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. I appreciate all of my members, but I especially appreciate those of you who go above and beyond to help support the channel in an even bigger way. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate everything you guys do for me. It really means a lot. I don't mean to sound like a broken record. I just want you guys to understand that I do appreciate it and I do not take it for granted. And that I just don't want anybody to feel like that's the case, because that's not. Thank you so much, man. You're saying the damage is reversible. I think some of it is. I just think that this is something that people are always going to remember. You know what I mean? Like, forgive, but don't forget. And I think that's the situation that CD Projekt Red is in right now, where people are going to forgive them over time if they make the right decisions and the right moves, and especially if they fix their game, but they're not going to forget, and that's the thing. And people are going, and that's the important part, is people are not going to forget. And so we have to understand, this is why we have to always be careful just how much we hype up a game. And I know that I'm guilty of this. I know that I hype up Sony stuff so much. I remember like people, clowned me because they thought I hyped up Days Gone too much. But I'll tell you what, I stand by my hype for Days Gone. And there's a reason why I put Days Gone in the thumbnails, because I remember, I remember that there was a situation where, everybody was talking badly about Days Gone because, oh, it's a broken game. And, a lot of reviewers were taking points off and saying you want to avoid it because it was broken and it was glitchy. But we found out it was simply because they didn't get the day one patch. And when the day one patch was deployed, I can tell you right now, Days Gone, and I say this as somebody who put many hours into Days Gone at launch, Days Gone is not even remotely comparable to what I'm seeing for Cyberpunk. Granted, I haven't played Cyberpunk yet, but boy, oh boy, it is not difficult to find some gameplay of that title and seeing just how bad it is. And We have a new member, Brett Williams. Thank you so much, man, for becoming a channel member. Look forward to your exclusive perks, man. And it really means a lot to me that you're going above and beyond to help support me directly. Really, really does mean a lot. So thank you, man. But that is what's crazy to me is that, even if Cyberpunk 2077 does get all of the polish it needs and it becomes the game that it was supposed to be, right now, say sometime in 2021, still, there is just some damage that's done that you just can't, like, I know people are like, but what about The Witcher 3? Don't you remember that? Guys, come on. I mean, can we all agree that this is on another level? Like, this is on another level, whether it's hyperbolic or not. That's the thing. A lot of people are like, oh, this is just blown out of proportion. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether we think it's blown out of proportion or not. What matters is that this is the situation they find themselves in, and it's not good. It's getting worse by the day. And I didn't think I would be covering it here on the channel as much as I am, but it's like we can't ignore the elephant in the room. You know what I mean? Like, this is a situation where it's like, how is this happening? Like, how is it spiraling this bad? And JV Rod, thank you so much, man, for that generous donation, $50 donation. Thank you so much, man. You're saying, Merry Christmas, buddy. Keep up the awesome content. Really looking forward to all the awesome stuff you have in store for us in 2021. Well, thank you so much, man. I'm glad you're looking forward to it because believe me when I tell you, I am very excited for 2021. In fact, that's going to be the next topic we discuss once we move on. We're going to be talking about all of our expectations. I'll let you know right now, one of my expectations, JV Rod, is to have a lot of great content produced. The channel's going to continue to grow. The production values, hopefully, are going to continue to improve. Everything that you guys do to help support the channel, it goes back into the channel. And I'm incredibly excited. I know that the next generation has officially kicked off, but am I the only one that feels that 2021 is really going to be the year when it's like, okay, this is when next gen starts? 2021, I think, is going to be a special year for both games that release as well as announcements. So once again, thank you so much, JV Rod. Merry Christmas to you as well. Really appreciate that generous donation, man. It means a lot to me. And so just to kind of continue on this topic here, I feel bad because I feel like I should be saying more about the donations you guys give me, but I want to make sure that I don't get completely derailed and I can stick to the topics. I don't want to make the time stamping too difficult for Devil Shooter, which shout out to Devil Shooter, giving you an early shout out here for always doing the timestamps. Really appreciate that, man. Helps make my life a lot easier, and a lot of people appreciate the work you do. So thank you, man. But the reason why I'm saying this makes Sony look like gods, I know that sounds like extra. Like, I know that's extra, and I'm like, come on, like, but in the gaming space, like, this has truly given me a newfound appreciation for Sony, where it's like, I realize how easy it is to take it for granted. To take it for granted that when the PS5 launched, I was playing Spider-Man Miles Morales, which if you guys go watch the latest Digital Foundry breakdown, they did another one for Spider-Man Miles Morales where they were covering the performance ray tracing mode. One of the things they said, and I'm just paraphrasing here, they basically said that Insomniac is ahead of everybody. Insomniac is the one that's closest to actually like tapping into some of the full potential that we're going to see, and they're still far from it. But they're the closest one where they're doing great things with ray tracing. They're offering a game that is running at a solid 60 FPS with ray tracing enabled, where the resolution looks great. The resolution looks great. The game just looks great, and they're just praising them, saying that, and the loading times are far and away ahead of anything that we've seen so far. And to me, I just think that's worth pointing out, where it's like, that is due to good management. And it's not just Sony that's good at managing, obviously. I mean, I think that they've went through their up and downs, but I think at this point in time, Sony has truly reached like another level where they now know, like, they learned from their past mistakes. They learned from Drive Club, right? They learned from No Man's Sky that we need to be careful. We need to make sure that we're not going to put a game out that's just simply not ready just to meet a deadline. I think Sony is past those days. Look at how many times they delayed The Last of Us Part 2. And say what you want about The Last of Us Part 2, it did just win the PlayStation, the PlayStation Award, where they allowed everybody to vote. It did win Game of the Year. And you guys already know how I feel about that game. But in general, if there's one thing I could never take away from that game, is the amount of polish, just the amount of, game in terms of like it being finished that's there. You can see why the game had to get delayed and why it did get delayed. And it was better for it. It's better for it. And so I think that Sony has learned that you have to be able to just give the developers the time they need. Like, yeah, you're going to suffer in the short term. Like, maybe some shareholders are not going to be happy. Maybe your stock's going to drop just a little bit, maybe you're going to lose some money in the short term. But I think Sony is wise enough at this point to understand that it is all short term. Make a small sacrifice in the short term to reap even greater gains in the long term. It's as simple as that. And CD Projekt Red didn't do that. And I think it's a shame that they didn't, because we could be in a totally different situation. Even if CD Projekt Red said, look, we have to delay this game, at least on console, for another year, people would have been furious. People would have thrown a big fit. But I promise you, it would not be anywhere near as bad as what we're seeing happen right now. They should have been wise enough to know we just need to delay this game on console. Again, they would have paid in the short term, but they would have avoided this mess that they're in right now. And we could have seen that exact same situation, as I said earlier, happen with Halo Infinite. And I hope that this is just a lesson. I hope that if there's anything that we can gain from all of this and this entire situation, is that hopefully other publishers right now, because we have to understand this is like a publisher problem. The developers are not at fault here. And I know like this gets into the whole crunch situation, which I'm not going to dive deep into that, but come on, guys. We need to think rationally and clearly right now. If these developers are working hard, okay? Like, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but you can tell that there's a lot of heart and soul that is going into Cyberpunk. I mean, you could always tell that. In fact, I would say that that's one of the biggest reasons why people were always so hyped about Cyberpunk, because they really believed that the people developing this game, they really believed in what they were doing. They were passionate about what they were doing. I think we can all agree on that, right? I think that it's very difficult to be a game developer and not have some type of passion for video games. I mean, that's just in my opinion, that seems like an incredibly difficult thing to do. And I just don't see how you could produce a great video game or even a good video game if there's no passion there, right? That's just with anything. And we understand that in order to be the best, you have to deal with some sacrifices being made. That's just the way life is. Like, that is like just a law of reality. That's not me saying this is the way it is, because no, I'm not in control of that. If you look at anything in history, anybody who's ever achieved greatness, sacrifices had to be made. But there are lines, and this is where we have to think rationally. If a development team is working their ass off and they're putting everything into it, but it's just because of how ambitious this game is, it's like, look, this isn't a matter of how much time or effort we put in. It's just like, we're humans. We need to eat food. We need to sleep. We need to be able to not sacrifice our health entirely to make this happen. This just, when it comes to timelines, like, this just simply isn't plausible. That's where the management comes in, and they have to, like, this is what they're paid to do. They're paid to lead. They're paid to make the tough choices. That tough choice is you need to be able to listen to what your platoon, I guess you could say, what the guys who are in and girls who are in the trenches, you need to pay attention to what they're telling you and not ignore it. And it's a fine line, because the people who are making these big decisions, they also have to keep in mind, well, we do have deadlines we have to meet, and we have to think about the bottom line. We have to think about the shareholders, but this is what they're paid to do, man. I don't feel sorry for them, because that's why you're in the position you're in. You have to have the wisdom. You have to have the knowledge. You have to have the understanding to know what is the right call to make. And guys, crunch or no crunch, I think we can all agree this game should not have been released on console yet. It just simply shouldn't have. And if it was going to release on console, it should have been relegated to the early access portion. That's why early access exists. So when your game's nowhere near finished and it needs a lot more polish, that's where the game goes until it's, considered a finished product. And that is the fault of whoever was in charge, whoever got to make that final call where they said, yep, here's the green light, push it out the door, we're selling it. that's on them. That's not on the developers. That's not on the gamers who hype the game. That's on them. That's what they get paid to do. That's why they're in the position they're in. That's called failed leadership. And you want to see a ship sink? You'd be surprised how fast a ship can sink when you don't have an actual captain at the helm. That's what'll happen. Your ship will sink, and it will sink very quickly. And I feel like that's what we're seeing right now with CD Projekt Red, where the management it's just so poor, where it's like, was it really that difficult to maybe just decide we need to delay the game when you can't even give review copies of this game for console because you know what's going to happen? I don't know. The fact of the matter is this, okay? If you're going to make your game that ambitious, there's a reason why Rockstar, delays are nothing to them. They just do not care. They do not care. Okay, Rockstar, and I understand that they need to make money. Time is money, of course. But again, short-term sacrifice, long-term gain. And when it comes to the idea that Sony can't make games on the same scope or ambition level of what we've seen from Cyberpunk or GTA, well, again, that comes down to good management. If they realize that they don't have the time or money to make a game that ambitious, then the reality is you scale it down a little bit. And I know nobody likes to hear that, but we don't live in La La Land here, okay? This isn't heaven. There are realities, and realities are that there are deadlines, that we cannot give a game infinite time, because if we did that, the game would never come out, and they would probably go bankrupt. They would lose all their money. That's reality. So the reality is people have to be put in positions where they're in charge to make the tough decision. Maybe we have to scale this down a notch. Maybe we have to make these small sacrifices and we can't hit this level that we want it to, but we go just maybe one level below. So that way we can actually reach our deadlines and put out a fully finished game. And I promise you, nobody's sitting here saying, man, that really sucks that God of War 2018 wasn't a full-blown open world game with millions of NPCs walking around where I could just do anything at any time. Like, no, I don't think anybody's complaining about that, because that game proved that you don't need to have, like, not every game needs to be that level of size, scope, and scale. If a game's going to get that, it needs to have the right time. This is where management and planning, it's a really important trait for people to have. And that's why people who are put in these positions, they have to get it right. And if they don't, it's going to fall on them. I'm not saying it's easy. None of this is easy, but this is just the reality. Joshua, you're saying, MBG, I like the previous super chat and want to support my favorite content creators for the holidays. You're my favorite source for PlayStation news and gaming. Well, thank you so much, man. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. It means a lot. I appreciate that there are those of you who really do like the content here and you really like what I do. And some of you calling me your favorite content creator. I'm truly humbled. That is crazy to me, and it means a lot. And it makes me feel like I want to continue to live up to that and get even better. And I really do appreciate that, man. Appreciate all the support, guys. Really do. Really do. I know we're having a tough conversation right now, but the support is amazing. And, I want it to, as much as I want to keep it more positive, we have to acknowledge the reality of the situation. But you guys are doing a good job at keeping the positivity up. Thank you so much. And so, I'm not going to go on too much longer with this topic. It's hard not to, because it's the flavor of the day. It's the big thing that's going on right now. Thank you, Cody. Thank you for that. I see you. Thank you so much, man. Look, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not saying that I could do a better job. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there are people who are put in positions and they're given a specific job for a reason. First of all, they're supposed to go through a process to determine if they're qualified for that job. So for example, if somebody just simply doesn't have the proper skills or traits necessary to lead a massive development team, possibly one of the biggest in the world, then there's no reason they should be in that position. There's no reason they should be a studio head or, the head of publishing or whatever, if they can't make those tough calls, whatever it is. If you can't manage the team, then, that's part of that. By the way, part of the management's job and the reason why they get paid more and they get paid a lot is because part of it is you also have to have the ability to hire the right people, to find the talent, to be able to determine, like, okay, we have 3 people who want to be part of our team, who want to get hired. But really only 2 of them seem to have the necessary skills and qualifications to help achieve what we want to achieve. And the last person, they're just not going to make the cut. That is up to, again, that's the management's job to figure that stuff out. And when management is just when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, when they're failing at their job, everybody else below them is also going to be part of that failure. It's the trickle down effect. That's just how it works. It starts from, higher ups and it goes all the way down. So it's not a tough concept to grasp, but it's just people, I think, often ignore these realities where it's like, right now, I think the most important thing we can kind of gauge and take from this entire situation, again, it is a positive. It's that anybody right now who's either part of management in gaming and it's their job to make these decisions, they're taking notes right now. They're taking a lot of notes. Publishers, even the higher up executives, those who don't care about the games, those who are just in it, they're just simply part of it for the business reasons to keep the stockholders happy and make as much money as they can. Even they're taking notes because, believe me, this is something that is affecting every aspect. The shareholders, those who are up top wearing the suits, the developers, and everybody in between, the gamers. And everybody's taking notes because, they're just trying to make sure that they don't end up in the same position. And you have to kind of look at how all of this happens. You have to ask yourself, how does all of this happen? How does it happen in this way? And how do we avoid it? And this is where I think Sony is ahead of the curve, man. I really do. This is why I'm calling them gods, because it's like, geez, man, look at think about 2020. Okay, when it comes to Sony, think about the games that they released and the amount of opportunities that were there for them to fail. Okay, granted, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that any game that Sony released is on the same level as Cyberpunk in terms of massive open world where you can do anything and be anybody and just it's this living, breathing world. Sony didn't make anything like that. I'd say the closest thing is probably Ghost of Tsushima, considering its open world nature. But I think this also proves that, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I just have to drive this point home that not every game needs to be that. And if the reality is your team is either not big enough or not skilled enough to make that happen, again, that's part of the wisdom factor. You need to be able to know that so you don't willingly walk into that disaster that, you know what I mean? Like, you have to know your own limits. If you don't know your own limits, you'll never know what you can and cannot achieve. And of course, we're all about getting better, being better, pushing the limit. But again, it reminds me of lifting weights. Okay. It's like when you are looking to increase the amount of weight that you can lift, it's very rare that you jump up from okay, I'm lifting, say, I'm going to go from lifting 145 to now I'm just going to jump up to 225 and I'm going to be able to do the same amount of reps. That's not how that works. You need to build your way up to that. You need to know what your limit is. If your limit is I can do 1 rep for 225, well, if you're trying to go for 8 to 10 reps, you probably just want to bump it up to maybe 165 and see, use that as your way to help get you stronger. And then you can slowly start working your way up. And I feel like in this case, we're seeing using this analogy, CD Projekt Red, they went into the gym, they're like, we're going to do 225 for 10 reps. And they did. And everybody's like, whoa, that's pretty good, man. Good job. And they're like, yeah, that's right. We're good. Wait until you see what I do next. And he's going to suddenly try to, do 325 for 10 reps without building up to it. And then the weight just falls on him and crushes him. You know what I mean? That's how I see CD Projekt Red right now. And they're feeling the pain, man. They're feeling the pain. and that's where it's that's just, it's a tough situation, man. I mean, people are saying lazy devs, lazy developers. Don't get me wrong. There are situations where it is the developer's fault. There are developers that are just, they can get lazy. It's human nature. We can all get lazy. We can all, get complacent. Maybe that's possible. But here's another thing as well. If you're a developer at a company, and it's your job, and we all need a job, we all need that sense of security. If you're a developer and maybe you realized like 2 years ago that your management is like completely incompetent and they're idiots, but they just don't listen. I mean, I'm going to be honest. If that was me, yeah, you're damn right I'd get lazy, because I'd be like, these guys are effing morons. Like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. Like they're sitting here telling me I got to get A, B, C, D, E, F, G done in 1 month, when in reality, everybody who's a developer and, in the trenches knows I'm only going to be able to get A, B, and C done in 1 month. And if it's like, no matter how many times you tell them, no matter how many times you say to them, this can't happen, it's just not realistic, and they just say, no, you can do it. I believe in you. We're the best of the best. Like, you see what I'm saying? Again, it's like having a bad coach. It's like having a bad coach, guys. Just like I said, if you have a bad coach in the weight room and they say, I want you to be doing 10 reps of 325 in 1 month, guess what? That's not happening unless you're on gear, man. Like if you're just starting, like, and even on gear, that's probably not going to happen. And it's like, at what point is it like, clearly the people in charge are not meant to be in that position. Okay? Your team is only as good as the person leading it. And that's just the truth, even if there was a lazy developer, even if there, is multiple lazy developers, it is up to the management to cut that out. Either correct it by saying, hey, you're being too late. Like, you're not, carrying your own weight compared to everybody else. Let's pick it up a notch. And if you can't, then they got to go. That's also part of management's team. There's a lot of gray areas, guys. It's a tough situation, but what I'm trying to explain right now is that the reality is somebody at CD Projekt Red, or multiple somebodies who had very important decisions to make, made the wrong decisions. It's as simple as that. There is no way around it, whether it's lazy developers, whether it's gamers getting too hyped, whether it's them being overly ambitious. None of that really matters right now, except for those who are up next in line. And the developers who are making games right now, the publishers who have games coming out later on, yeah, take notes, learn from this. Don't let this be in vain, okay? Don't let it be in vain. Sony even put themselves in a, you're saying, MBG, why are you insulting developers? They're not lazy developers. No. You're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm not calling developers lazy, and I'm not saying they're lazy. I'm saying that there are times, just like there are bad managers, there are also some developers who are just not meant to be working in certain conditions. That's all. If a developer walks into, Naughty Dog or CD Projekt Red or Rockstar, surely they have to know what the expectation is going to be. The expectation level is going to be a lot higher than if you're walking into a much smaller, like, indie studio that's maybe very chill and they just kind of work at their own pace. I'm not saying either side is wrong. I'm saying it's important for developers to understand what they're most comfortable with, and it's very important for management to understand what it is you're trying to achieve and whether or not you're going to be able to achieve that. That's all I'm saying. I don't think, calling somebody lazy is necessarily the right way to go about it. I think that is a little bit, it's a little bit heavy-handed. I think the best way is, look, there's different development teams for reasons, right? Like, there's different goals trying to be achieved. I think it's safe to say that a smaller, say 20-person indie studio is not even remotely trying to achieve the same thing that, say, CD Projekt Red is or Rockstar Games is, and that's okay. In fact, that's actually probably the smartest thing that people can do, is just be honest with yourself, ask yourself what it is you're trying to achieve and what your goal is, and just be realistic with your expectations in getting there. I think if more people could do that, the world in general would be a better functioning place. But, everybody wants to be Michael Jordan, but there can only be one Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? And that's because the person that is Michael Jordan, what he was willing to do to get where he got, only he could do that. And if there's anybody else that was willing to do that, well, they either did it too late or they gave up along the way. And that's okay, because not everybody needs to be Michael Jordan. Not everybody needs to be the next Michael Jordan. Okay? That's all I'm trying to say. Anyway, I know I'm getting a little bit far-fetched here, but Yeah, you're saying their work conditions sound terrible. Do you blame them? No, I don't. I mean, if people are suffering terrible work conditions, I mean, guys, like, again, like, I am all about like pushing yourself and toughing it out. And like, if you want to achieve something great, you got to be willing to deal with the pain and deal with the sacrifice. But at the same time, again, we have to use our heads here. You know, we are talking about developers. We're not talking about Olympic athletes or athletes in general. We're talking about people that, like, if you're dealing with coding, you know, if you're dealing with the creation of assets, I don't think you need to worry about, you know, one of the things that developers shouldn't have to worry about is terrible work conditions. You know what I mean? It's like, how are you ever going to become a Mr. Olympia if you're using like the crappiest workout equipment that just can't get the job done? You know, or you're just, you know, you're going to become a Mr. Olympia working out in, you know, in frigid, freezing conditions. Like every time you go to train, it's just not going to happen. You know, there needs to be certain conditions that have to be met. It's a balance. It's a balance. Leo Jimmy, you're saying MBG, this is a warning to Sony to not to not do cross gen. Look at Cyberpunk and Halo. I know Sony are development wizards, but this is a true warning. If you want it on PS4, have it on 4. True next gen games need to only be on PS5. I do agree. That is another angle and another aspect that I think that is another aspect that we do need to acknowledge as well, is that like this, maybe we could argue that if somewhere along the development pipeline of Cyberpunk 2077, what if and who, you know, we don't know exactly what went on behind the scenes. Maybe developers have suggested, like, maybe like to management, like maybe they say, maybe we should stop development. Like maybe we should just drop the last gen consoles. And maybe the management was like, we can't do that. Like just from a monetary standpoint, from a sales standpoint, we can't do that. Again, that's where it's like, well, which is it? Which do you want? Do you want us to make the greatest game ever made? Because that's only going to happen with cutting edge technology and not being held back by these old consoles. Or are we going to scale down the ambition and make it so that we can get this game functioning properly and efficiently, quickly enough on these older consoles? You know, you can't have your cake and eat it too. That's just reality, man. That's just reality. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You can get close to it, but you'll never get that full, you know, you'll never get the full thing going on there. Faded, you're saying, imagine if Insomniac manages to hit a 4K 60 resolution with ray tracing in the Spidey sequel. Merry Christmas, man. I love your content. You're my go-to for gaming news and the only gaming podcast I can sit through. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate all the love you guys are showing me today. It makes me feel a little bit weird for being as ranty as I am right now and talking about such an intense topic, but I really appreciate that, man. You guys are awesome. And I have to thank all of you guys. You know, like you tell me how much you appreciate what I'm doing. Well, let me tell you, without you guys, I wouldn't be anything right now, you know? So you make this channel what it is, you know? It's a nice little give and take that we have going on here. So I appreciate that, man. Appreciate all the super chats. Cook X84, you're saying, number one, consider No Man's Sky's comeback. The PS5 very well could be Cyberpunk's in this situation will be a meme. Number two, Sony's learned a lot, but they're slacking when it comes to certain non-family friendly Japanese games. LOL. Yeah, I think you're referring to the censorship. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard much about that lately, but I did talk about that in the past, and I'm just a believer in, look, as long as it's not crossing like a very obvious, like, okay, this is like I am not about censorship. I do feel that there just are some lines where it's like, you're really going to cross that line. Like, you're really going to let this be a thing. Like, there does have to be lines. I'm a believer in that. I'm a believer in boundaries. I think there always has to be boundaries, but guys, like, I'm just not like, does this really need to be censored like that? Like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Please let artists do what they want to do. If there's artists that are just completely sick in the head, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, to like a really like, whoa, like, this is concerning, man. Like, we're concerned about your mental health right now. That's a different level. Okay. But a lot, you know, I'm not even gonna get into that, but yeah, you know, you mentioned, No Man's Sky. I'm not saying Cyberpunk can't make a comeback. Yeah, some people were telling me that Cyberpunk was like, censored or something. I hope that's not true, because like that's what I'm talking about. Like, Cyberpunk, in my opinion, isn't doing anything like crazy out there. Like, oh my God, like this is insane. Like, no, they're just, like it's a very mature themed game. You're saying, saying Cyberpunk wasn't censored. I haven't heard anything about it, so I'm assuming it wasn't. But, and that's the thing, is it has a ton of potential. I really just feel that every decision, like, I can only assume, and I'll end it here, and we'll move on to the next topic. I can only assume that CD Projekt Red's management decided, like, they had to weigh the options. Again, they are the ones, they have to make tough decisions. Do we release this game knowing that it's just not 100% ready, and hope that the goodwill of the gamer and the consumer that we've spent years building towards carries us through maybe a rocky launch, maybe a really rocky launch? I think that they thought they would get away with this. And I hate to put it that way, but let's be honest here. They knew what they were doing. And again, I have to acknowledge the fact that they refused to give review copies for the consoles, and they refused to let reviewers use their own footage. Even, what was it, SkillUp? Even he came out and said that he wasn't putting out his review early because he wasn't comfortable with the fact that they wouldn't let him use his own footage. He thought that was shady, And yeah, I also want to say really quick, I put out a tweet yesterday where I said, I feel like Keanu Reeves deserves better than what he got with Cyberpunk 2077. And I didn't mean that as in like, there's anything wrong with the story of the game, because I haven't played it. What I meant by that is like just all of the bad press it's getting. Like, you would think if Keanu Reeves was going to be in a big AAA video game, it wouldn't be the one where it's like, oh my God, like this is a disaster. Like and if there's any game you could have your name associated with, I don't know that this is the one you'd want it to be. So I suggested maybe Rockstar Games make a proper John Wick game, or if not a John Wick game, a AAA John Wick game, maybe make a Max Payne 4 and insert Keanu Reeves as a new character in the universe alongside Max Payne. That would be great. That would be great. And people are like getting mad at me because like, a John Wick game already exists. John Wick Hex. And I'm like, I know. It's nothing against that game. But guys, come on. John Wick Hex is not that AAA John Wick, shooter that we're thinking about in our head, right? Let Max Payne die. No, man. Max Payne's amazing. Where's Max Payne? Where's Max Payne, man? I need to know where that is. So, but yeah, Keanu will be fine. I mean, he's a big famous actor. He got his paycheck, I'm sure, for doing his job. I'm just sure that he's probably like looking at this situation like, whoa, I wish this wasn't going the way it is. You know what I mean? Like, and for, who knows? Maybe it's his greatest performance of all time. I don't know. I heard from what I heard from the reviews, apparently he was, so I think it was SkillUp. I did watch his review. SkillUp said he was miscast in this role where he's playing like a really, really like bad guy. Like, he's just not a good guy. And because Keanu Reeves in real life is known as such a good guy, it's just really off-putting where it's like, that's Keanu Reeves. Like, I can't take him seriously acting like this. You know what I mean? And I don't know. Getting a little bit off topic here, but we're going to move on to the next topic. Just to put a bow on this topic, I know Sony are not gods, obviously. I know it's a little bit hyperbolic, but I do think that Sony has learned, and I think that Sony, frankly, made the right call by removing this game. I do agree 100% that Sony needs to be careful now to make sure that they listen to their developers. And if their developers say this game cannot play on the PS4, and if we try to make it play on the PS4, it's going to be a development disaster, they need to listen to that. I'm sure Sony will listen to that. And I think that Sony is, they've been given a lot of credit, but I think that they should get honestly even more credit because they put out, it was Square Enix that put out Final Fantasy VII Remake, but Sony ensured that this is going to be a game that's exclusive on our platform, even if it's for a year. They put out The Last of Us Part 2. They put out Ghost of Tsushima, 2 games that were contending against each other for Game of the Year alongside Final Fantasy. And then on top of that, they put out games like Spider-Man Miles Morales as well as Demon's Souls Remake. all in 1 year. And the amount of disasters that could have ensued, the amount of things that could have went wrong but didn't, and it all came together. Even during, I recently saw that CD Projekt Red was saying, well, the whole situation with the pandemic and whatnot, it completely screwed us up. And I believe that. I know that it affected everybody, but I have yet to hear Sony make that excuse. That's all I'm saying. That's, the ones who are getting out finished games, polished games, good games, they're not making those excuses. They just adapted and they overcame. And that's part of trying to be great. You got to be able to deal with any issue that comes your way, So, yeah, I think Microsoft deserves credit as well for what they're doing with Halo. And I hope that if there's anything to be gained from this, it's that many publishers and many people who are leaders who are meant to make these tough decisions, that hopefully they don't let a situation like this happen again. And we don't see a situation like this happen again. Excuse me. So, yeah, anyway, we're going to move on from that. Leo Jimmy, once again, you're saying one more thing. If Cyberpunk is so god tier, how are they complaining about 7-year-old console when they announced it back in 2012? Yeah, that's, what, really quick, I apologize. I really need to move on to the next topic, but that is something that I've heard a lot of people say is like, oh, well, the problem is you expecting a game like this to run on a 7-year-old console. Like, again, that's not my fault. That's not the fault of anybody who owns a PS4 or Xbox One expecting a finished game. That's the fault of them not, removing it from the console and saying this just can't run on the console. So anyway, guys, hit that like button. We're almost at 400 likes. Let's see if we can get up to 500 likes. That would really help the podcast out a lot. We're going to be moving on and talking about our expectations for 2021 when it comes to Sony and Microsoft. So what are our expectations for Sony and Microsoft in 2021? How many events do we expect? What will the first half look like? When will the market finally be saturated with these consoles so everyone who wants one can get one? There's a lot of questions when it comes to what can we expect, in 2021. And so I want to start this out by saying that when it comes to my overall expectation from Sony and Microsoft, both of them going into 2021, I expect that they're both going to have great years. However, I do think that Sony is going to have a significantly better year simply because right now the biggest difference I'm seeing between Sony and Microsoft going into next year is Microsoft still seems to be lagging behind in some ways. I mean, they do have games that are coming out as exclusives for their console, and the only big game that I'm aware of right now, I mean, I think there's Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think that's coming to the console, but I'm talking about like new games, that you can't play that just aren't released yet. The biggest difference between the two and where I think the expectation is very different for Sony than Microsoft is Sony has a lot of stuff revealed and announced. And so my expectation, frankly, and I know that people are like, oh, you're just being a fanboy, but I'm just saying this based off of the way it's been going down and what we know about and what has been talked about. I think the expectation for Sony is they're going to absolutely kill it, man. Like I think 2021, believe it or not, could be a better year than 2020 when it comes to their output of software and games. And I think that it really does depend on whether or not any of these games do get delayed. Like if Horizon gets delayed or if God of War Ragnarok gets delayed, I think that could definitely hinder the overall wow factor of the year. But I think another thing that is going to play a huge role is what exactly Sony still has left to announce for future projects. Brett Williams, you're saying I expect Xbox to say wait until 2022. Sony crushes. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I mean, maybe to some people that sounds like an exaggeration, but I do think that Microsoft is still far from an ideal position when it comes to them going into 2021. Like, yes, they did buy Bethesda. They do have Bethesda. They will have games that are coming out, but ultimately, I just get this feeling from Microsoft that everything they announced and everything they revealed for this year, basically, not for this year, but what, you think back to July with their big game showcase, I just get this feeling that they're still kind of a ways off. Like I don't think we're going to be seeing State of Decay 3 anytime soon. I would love to be wrong, but Microsoft, the one thing I do want to let you guys know about them that is a little bit different is, and this is, I don't know if this is necessarily an advantage they have over Sony. It could be an advantage in terms of just surprise factor because Microsoft has Game Pass and because that's their bread and butter. Like, hey, we have Game Pass. It does kind of alter the way Microsoft can, I have to emphasize the word can, go about announcing release dates for games. To where Sony, because they are still all about the bigger AAA experience, but also just the premium experience, right? Like that's where Sony and Microsoft differ the most, where Sony's all about that premium high-end experience, quality over quantity, and Microsoft just simply is not. This kind of means that Microsoft, if they wanted to, let's just use Hellblade 2 as an example, right? If they wanted to, they could just announce in, I don't want to say March, but let's just say at their next event. Let's say Microsoft holds their next big event, say in June. They could just announce in June, hey, check out this new Hellblade gameplay. It's dropping in September, or even earlier than that, because it's going to Game Pass. They're not like their marketing cycle for games doesn't have to take on the more traditional, like we really need to heavily advertise this game and pump it up and get everybody psyched. It's, they're still going to have to market it, but that's where they do differ from Sony. And so they might not take it that way, though. That's just an assumption on my part. And this is where I'm just trying to acknowledge the fact that Microsoft could, surprise us in 2021. But right now it's looking like my expectation for Microsoft personally, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in the chat, what your expectation for Microsoft is. My expectation for Microsoft in particular, it's not very high. I think that they're going to continue to double and triple down on Game Pass. I think that, it will be interesting to see how their console is going to sell. To be frank, my expectation for how well their console is going to sell, the Series X and S, not that high. Like, I think once they saturate the market, sales are really going to drop for them. I could be wrong, but that's my expectation. And when it comes to games, my expectation for them isn't very high because it seems to me that the only big game they're focused on getting out in 2021 is Halo Infinite, and that's coming late 2021. My expectation for Sony, the reason why I say they're going to kill it is because, guys, like, they have a lot of games announced. We already know this, but I can't shake this feeling. Like, I know that people come at me and they're like, they make jokes, and I get it. I set myself up for this where they're like, oh, Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid and whatnot, but I'm not saying what it is because I don't know what it is. But I just have this feeling that Sony is saving either something or a few things that are absolutely colossal, that are just simply, we could see Starfield as well from Microsoft now that they have Bethesda. I forgot to mention that as well, but that game's been MIA. So, I don't know if we're going to see that or not. That could be a big game that they have trying to maybe hit the holiday season of next year. But I just, I think it's just, I have this feeling that Sony's going to drop something on us that it's just going to, I don't want to overhype anything because I want to make it clear that it's not going to be like, oh, GTA 6 is an exclusive to PlayStation. No, not like that. I mean, like, that's like ridiculous levels of like, whoa, like that is, that's like career ending for Microsoft if something like that were to happen. But, you're saying David Jaffe, the father of God of War, hinted that Sony is working on something in regards with PlayStation Now, creating smaller scale studios that will focus on AA games to drop into PS Now day one. Oh, geez, that would, I don't like the sound of that. But here's the thing, okay? Sony continues to prove me wrong. All right. Like, a lot of people clowned on me because they were like, dude, you were the one who came out here and you were like, dude, like, cross-gen is the worst thing ever. I'm so glad Sony's not doing cross-gen. I'm so glad that Sony's all about generations and we believe in generations and none of their PS5 games are going to be cross-gen. And I agree, like, that with everybody saying that, like, I came off as a hypocrite or I just looked dumb because I said all that. And I said that Microsoft was making a big mistake by doing that. And frankly, it gets me much less excited for their games because I feel like they're going to be held back and they're not going to be impressive. And then it was revealed that games like Spider-Man Miles Morales are cross-gen. And I was like, oh, geez, like, I don't know about this, and Horizon Forbidden West is going to be cross-gen, and maybe even God of War Ragnarok will be cross-gen. And I had to tell you guys, like, guys, they proved me wrong. And I know people are going to be like, oh, you're just going to say that because you'll say anything Sony does is good. No, I don't need to say that because Miles Morales was impressive, right? And I think Horizon Forbidden West is going to be impressive. I was just, I feel like they proved me wrong that, like, okay, maybe games can be cross-gen and they can still be really great, And I explained that Microsoft had the opportunity to convince me, to basically sell me on your cross-gen vision. Like, why should I believe you when you tell me that it's okay if we make more cross-gen games, right? And then they showed me Halo Infinite, and I'm like, yeah, no. I that's not helping me at all. I don't think games should be cross-gen. But then Sony shows me Spider-Man Miles Morales, and they're like, oh, by the way, this is cross-gen. I'm like, really? Like, really? And then I played on my PS5, and I'm like, wow, like, this game's amazing. If you had told me this was a PS5 only game just based off of how good it looks, I would have believed you. If you told me that this game just couldn't run on PS4, I'd probably believe you, but I was proven wrong. So I do not want to see that what you said about David Jaffe. Like, I don't follow him, and I don't know if what you're telling me is true. I'll take your word for it that he actually did say that. What's interesting about him saying that is the timing of it, because recently Jim Ryan said that they feel as though they have an answer to Game Pass. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I know that Sony's answer to Game Pass doesn't have to be them literally making their own Game Pass or doing the same thing that Microsoft is doing. But I just had this bad feeling that that's exactly what they're doing. I don't want to believe that because you guys know I have my issues with Game Pass. My biggest issue with Game Pass is that something has to give. And it would be very strange to me if Sony did do something like that because, Jim Ryan literally said that they don't have, they're not doing a Game Pass model because it's not sustainable for them. However, this could be very interesting because what we could see is a situation where, let's say, okay, let's use Returnal as an example. Okay, the thing about Returnal is it's being sold as a $70 title. The problem with this is not the fact that it's $70. It's the fact that most people, and I could be wrong about this, but I've seen a lot of people basically be like, yeah, I think Returnal looks like it's going to be great. And then they see that it's $70 and they're like, but I don't know that it's $70 great. Like there's a lot of apprehension. There's a lot of concern. And if Sony were pursuing something like that, maybe we would have to play Returnal first for me to answer this question. That's why I have to say maybe. Like, I could play Returnal and be like, holy crap, like this is a $70 AAA game. It's content packed, it's polished as hell, it's much bigger and longer in terms of like game length than I was like anticipating, and I'm not left feeling that this wasn't a $70 experience. I would have to play it, but if we do play that game and it's like, this is being sold for $70, but it feels like it should be sold for much less than that, If that's the feeling people get, then maybe that's where Sony could potentially, I don't know, maybe take the Game Pass route. But I think the big differentiating factor, if Sony were to do that, is it comes down to this. If Sony, and this is just entertaining all different avenues that Sony could take, because I don't know what Sony's next move is. At this point, what I do know is they're unpredictable in some ways, simply because one day they go from saying, we believe in generations, and we're not, and basically making it sound like they're not doing any cross-gen games, to then announcing that all of their bigger games, at least like Horizon Forbidden West and Spider-Man, are going to be cross-gen, right? Like, that tells me that I need to expect the unexpected with them. I can't take their word for it all the time, unfortunately. I would love to, but that's just not how the situation works. So if Sony were to pursue a situation or a scenario where they're like, you know what, we do need to compete with Game Pass because Game Pass is successful for Microsoft, or it's going to be very successful for them, and we need to have an answer basically. Because let's be honest, a lot of people are like, well, PlayStation Now is the answer, but it's not. Like, we have to understand it simply because PlayStation Now is not looked at the same way that people look at Game Pass, and it's certainly not talked about in the same way that people are talking about Game Pass. You're saying David Jaff said that there is this scenario in which AA titles get dropped on PlayStation Now day one, while AAA titles are sold as usual. See, to me, that makes a lot of sense. That is precisely the scenario that I could see Sony pursuing, where they want the best of both worlds. Maybe they can achieve it. I mean, I think it would be difficult, but it's possible where, yeah, maybe they do something like that. Maybe for their smaller titles, that have less of a chance of success potentially, or not even success, but they're just maybe going to get overshadowed by the bigger titles. Maybe that's an option they can pursue. Maybe they can say, look, we're doing this new initiative where we're going to put some games into PlayStation Now day one when they release, and you can gain access to that. However, our big AAA titles are not going to PlayStation Now day one, and they might not ever go to PlayStation Now. That would be an interesting scenario. So if Microsoft were to do something like that, what that would equate to is we see games like, I can't even think of anything off the top of my head. We see games like Battletoads and Grounded released in Game Pass day one. And I don't think anybody's going to complain about that. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody's going to be like, no, Battletoads should not be in Game Pass day one. It's Battletoads, I don't think anybody's going to care. But what they would do instead is, when it comes to Halo Infinite, yeah, this isn't going into Game Pass. This is our AAA game. This is going to be a full-blown AAA release. You're going to pay full price for it, digitally or physically. And then maybe a year and a half or 2 years later, once nobody's buying Halo Infinite anymore, then they put it into Game Pass. That could be, that's essentially what we're talking about here. Maybe that could be Sony's solution. And I would be on board with that. I would be a little bit nervous because that is one step closer to them, doing their game. And guys, I'm not kidding when I tell you, Microsoft has yet to prove to me that they can sustain these big AAA games when it comes to Game Pass. I say this because people are gonna be like, well, what about Gears of War? What about Forza Horizon 4? What about them? There was already a promise with those games, okay? The promise was Gears of War is still going to be AAA because it has to be. Forza is going to be AAA because it has to be. The real question is their new IP, their big games. When I see a new IP that's dropped into Game Pass, let's just say Perfect Dark, for example. If Perfect Dark is a fully complete title that's whoa, this is a $70 AAA game, and then they just drop it in Game Pass, I'd be like, okay, they proved me wrong. Look at what they're doing. You know what I mean? And it's a good game, of course, but I don't know. But yeah, you're mentioning Godfall. I have not played it, but my God, I'm not going to lie. I haven't played it because I watched SkillUp's review. I watched a few other reviews, and they're just like, guys, this is a bad game. And I'm like, oh my God, and this game's being sold for $70, that's a perfect example of a game that should be in Game Pass. I'm just going to be honest. It should be in Game Pass because you can't complain about, oh, this seems like a low quality game or it's just not a good game. And it's multiplayer, you know what I mean? So it's look, here, I'll make it clear. I'll make it clear because, I'm very much hesitant when it comes to the Game Pass model, but I will make it clear what my expectation for Sony is and what I want to see them do in 2021. And not just 2021, but it's co-op multiplayer, my bad, not just multiplayer. But my expectation for Sony, not just let me put it this way. My expectation for Sony throughout this upcoming generation is very simple. Regardless of whether or not they pursue their own version of Game Pass, which I'm sure they're going to, I just think it's going to be different. I just don't think it's going to be done in the same way that so, Microsoft is doing it. As long as they always prioritize two things. One, the console. Okay, that was one of the biggest things that I didn't appreciate that Microsoft did once Game Pass became their new initiative. The console seemed like it took a back seat, or maybe even a third row seat, because at that point it was just, we need to get everybody in the Game Pass, and we need it to be everywhere all the time. And to me, that's concerning, because I've explained this to you guys before, where people say, well, why do you care, MBG? Why do you care if a console sells or not? It's because the idea of buying a console is you're making an investment. And the only way they're going to sell you on that investment is with high quality software. So it's like, when people make an investment, not only are they expecting something of higher quality, but it works in favor of Sony and Microsoft as well, of the console platform holder, because when somebody pays $300, $400, $500 for your console, the chances that they're going to continually interact with that console and give you more money for games as well as subscriptions is much, much, much higher. The retention rate is much higher than if they were to just pay $10 to gain access and then they could just unsubscribe whenever they want. You see what I'm saying? Like, the platform holder is at the mercy of the casual consumer, essentially, when Game Pass is at the center. Okay? So really think about that. The platform holder is at the mercy of the casual gamer and the casual consumer when Game Pass is the priority. Because at that point, the only thing they care about is stay subscribed. Stay subscribed. We'll do anything we need to do to keep you subscribed. Here's a new game here. Here's a new game there. Quality, don't worry about it, because we're going to just throw so many games at you that you won't even worry about quality. You know what I mean? To whereas when the console is at the center of everything, the platform holder's biggest concern is the hardcore premium consumer and those who are willing to make investments. You see what I'm saying? One leads to, more refinement, higher quality. It's basically, like HBO versus Netflix, where HBO, like there's just a level of quality that's expected, and it's been earned over time, and they know that they can't just take the Netflix approach, and it would not be wise of them to take the Netflix approach. And because of that, they gain some prestige, but they're just held in high. I mean, it's a little bit different because yes, there's HBO Max and whatnot, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's going to be unavoidable. Sony is not going to be able to avoid the whole subscription Game Pass thing. As long as they keep the console at the center and as the focus, which with the PS5, I think they certainly are doing that. And more importantly, because of that, they keep the high quality AAA games at the center. Sony is a company, okay? They're a business. They're going to attempt, you're saying HBO is the worst streaming service? I wouldn't really know. Yeah, and maybe that was the worst analogy, because now we just found out that HBO Max, they're getting all of the theatrical releases of WB. So, maybe that's maybe that's not the best comparison, because that's essentially the equivalent of Sony putting all of their, Anyway, I don't know. I haven't really used HBO Max much, so I can't really speak to it. But this, keeping things gaming focused here, I feel that, yeah, I feel that Sony, as long as they keep, they're going to attempt to get the best of both worlds. That's the point. Sony is a company that's involved in gaming, where they're big enough in gaming, where they're going to continue. As long as, if they say, look, we're going to pursue our own Game Pass with PlayStation Now and experimenting and trying different things and putting games on PC like Horizon, Zero Dawn and whatnot, I don't care. They can do whatever they want as long as they always make it clear. And I'm talking through action, not through words, because that's what Microsoft does. Microsoft says that the console is their biggest priority and a cornerstone, and yet it's like they just don't care. They don't care whether it sells or not, whether people are buying it. And what that tells me is, if you don't care about that, then you don't care about the hardcore consumer. They're just they're second, they're in the second row to you, because, you're more focused on just keeping as many people in the door as you can. You're like a fast food restaurant. It's all about volume. It's all about numbers. It's not about the quality, you know? Vedger, you're saying in reality, consoles are hardware-based publishing platforms, where from the most money is done from the game sales on those publishing platforms. The profit isn't made from hardware sales, but game sales. Exactly. But that's the thing about the console being like a hardware-based publishing platform is it is a hard sell, no pun intended. It's literally a hard sell because you need to convince people like, why would I want to pay $400 or $500 for this console? And like, here's why, because quality. Because look at the types of games you're going to get on this platform, and that I just feel like the console inherently keeps the quality, the quality level high because for no other reason than it needs to. It's a need. It's not a, if the need for quality is gone, then who's going to care about quality? Do you see what I'm saying? If the need is gone, then who's going to care? So I think that the console kind of acts as this like, this necessary force of like, here's why you're gonna want a high quality game. Here's why you're gonna want to make sure your studios are producing AAA games that are worth that $70 price tag and certainly worth a $400 or $500 purchase. So I think I'm all about Sony. Do whatever you want, experiment in any way you want, but through your actions. Not words. Don't just tell me you support the console and then do things that are literally going to hurt your console sales. Don't tell me that you still support big AAA single player games and then literally not make any AAA single player games. Xbox. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like I don't want to hear words. I just want to see the actions. Continue to prove to me that you're going to put out these games, that you're going to produce these games, that these games are going to be on a level that we just haven't seen before. And that quality still matters, and that the console still is at the center of, PlayStation's gaming universe. If you want to have your own version of Game Pass where it's maybe you're just putting some smaller titles, like, okay, here's another great example of a title that could have went right into PlayStation Game Pass, this theoretical PlayStation Game Pass. What was that game? Medieval, however you say it. You remember that? I don't know how well that did or did not sell, but that would have been a perfect game, right? To just go right into PlayStation's theoretical Game Pass. And I would have been totally cool with that. Like there's a big difference between the idea of a game like that going into PlayStation Now, Game Pass access, whatever, versus a game like Horizon Forbidden West. You see what I mean? And, also games like Bug Snacks, Destruction All-Stars, like it blew my mind that Destruction All-Stars, and it may still be sold as a $70 title. It blew my mind that game was going to launch with the PS5 at $70. Like, yeah, that's a game like that right there is why I think Sony has no choice but to pursue this like somewhat Game Pass like model, but they need to be sure not to put all of their eggs in that basket. It needs to play its role. And I think it does have a role to play. To whereas I think Microsoft, they just put all of their eggs in that one basket, where they're just like, hey, like Game Pass, and maybe console if you want it. MBG, you forgot Microsoft made the Series console the cornerstone of their strategy, but not the only entry to their ecosystem. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it may be the cornerstone of their strategy, but I kind of question that because we've been told that apparently it's a server-based APU, and that's why we're not seeing the performance results that we were told to expect with the Series X, because it's a server-based APU that's built more for cloud compute than anything else. And considering they're using those consoles in server racks, the Series X consoles, I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? That doesn't mean it can't perform great for games. It can, but I don't know. Destruction All-Stars is free on PlayStation Plus in February, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Sony decides to consolidate PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. I think it's inevitable. I think at some point they're going to have to do that. Maybe do the exact thing that Microsoft is, where it's like, for $15 a month or whatever, you can gain access to PlayStation Now and you have PlayStation Plus. That's a possibility as well. It's uncharted territory. Even Microsoft, even though they did put all of their eggs in the Game Pass basket, even they don't know what the long term looks like with Game Pass. Sony has been the king for a long time in the console space, and I just hope that continues. And so I think this does. And so, just to kind of put a bow on this topic as well, before moving on to the next one, I think this, putting all of that aside, I know this kind of went from our expectations to for 2021. It kind of veered off into, let's talk about Game Pass and whatnot. But my expectation for Sony is that they're going to have a lot of great games that they're putting out. I plan to talk a lot about them. I think that they're going to have some incredible announcements that they've been saving, because 2021 is going to be a very big year for Sony and Microsoft, mainly because 2021 is the year where the market is finally fully saturated with these consoles. And the main priority for Sony and Microsoft is going to switch from how do we produce as many of these consoles as we can and get them out the door, versus it's going to switch to, okay, we have all of these consoles ready to go, ready to be sold. Let's sell these people on these consoles. And that's going to be great for us because that's going to mean bigger, better game announcements, really exciting stuff. It's just getting started. So I think 2021 is going to be great. My expectations are sky high for both Sony and Microsoft, and I'm very excited either way. So we're going to move along from that topic, and I want to have this conversation, which does kind of fall in line a little bit into this, where, I just mentioned a minute ago how I want to see the console remain at the center of gravity for Sony as a platform holder. And just when it comes to PlayStation, I want the console to always be at the center of what PlayStation is. And so does the PS5 have the potential to be the next PlayStation 2? I'm asking this question because news came out recently that Sony's share price has reached a record high in Japan, not seen since 2001 when the PlayStation 2 launched. And so, I feel that this is something that we should mention for a minute here, because we have to understand that the reason why Sony is still so supportive of the console experience and why it's still such a high priority for them, it's simply because it is what has always worked for them. It's their bread and butter, and they have yet to fail in the console space. The closest thing that they got to failing in the console space, quote unquote failing, was with the launch of the PlayStation 3. That was really the only time where they really kind of dropped the ball and made some big mistakes. But even then, they made a significant comeback by the end of that generation. And, all the way from the PS1 to the PS4, Sony has found incredible success, but nothing has found the success quite like the PlayStation 2. And it's believed that the reason why the PS2 is the best-selling console of all time, and nothing has been able to even get close to surpassing it, not even any of PlayStation's consoles, is because the console market peaked, and that was thanks to the DVD player inside of the PS2. But I'm not so sure that I believe that. Microsoft seemed to have been under the impression with the launch of the Xbox One that they were going to be able to sell 200 million units. So they believed at that time, you're saying MBG stop dying in the Demon Souls, the background gameplay is sad. Dude, you have to understand, this area that I'm playing in, this is literally my first time in this area. So what you're seeing is my first time raw gameplay. So if I kind of suck, that's why. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was very nervous about what happens next. Just to put that out there. But Microsoft seemed to have been under the belief that the full potential of the console market has not been reached and not fully tapped into. And I do believe that. I do agree with that. I do think that PlayStation, I think Sony can beat themselves. I think Sony can surpass the PS2 with the PS5 because, guys, I don't know. I've been around for a lot of console launches. Granted, I have not paid nearly as much attention to past console launches because I was a lot younger. But I don't recall ever seeing demand for a console like we're seeing with the PS5. I could be wrong. It could just be maybe, my perception. Maybe it's because I'm following it closer. It could be because, everything that's going on in the world right now, the scalpers are making the situation look much worse than it is. But I just, we're hearing that the PS5 has broken a record. It's broken multiple records. The PS5 broke the record that the PS4 set. And the question is, will the momentum continue? And I think that the only chance that Sony really has of keeping that momentum, because guys, if we want to see the console stay at the center of PlayStation's gaming universe, it needs to sell. and it needs to sell well. If the PS5 could go on to even get close to matching the PS2, like maybe it won't hit like 155 million units sold or whatever it is. Maybe when it's all said and done, the PS5 hits 130 or 135 million units sold. Even then, that's crazy because that means it would have beaten the PS1, the PS3, and the PS4, which is incredibly hard to do because I can assure you the Xbox Series X and S combined are probably not going to beat the PS4. I think that right now what Microsoft has to do is try to beat the Xbox One, and I think we're all a little bit unsure if it can even do that. But you know, I do think that the ceiling has not been met. I could be wrong about that, but I think it just comes down to the games that are on offer throughout the generation, as well as how low the price point can eventually become for the PS5. The day will come where the PS5 can probably be bought for $300. I mean, I don't know when that day is going to be, but that's probably going to happen. Saying MBG, there is a fixed set of console install base. The consoles cannot penetrate the larger population of gamers because of the limitations of hardware usage in different regions in the world. That is a good point you do bring up that I don't really take into account. You know, there are certain territories where, and you know, what's interesting is Jim Ryan, that is one of the things he seems to fixate on and focus on when he talks in his interviews about growing the PlayStation brand, is one of the things he does frequently mention is trying to penetrate new areas and new territories and kind of like expand, you know, try to figure out like how much is there left to extract from these other territories. And I think that that's going to play a big role as well. They have the US and Europe basically on lock. And I think that there are other, are you saying, so I want Microsoft to give up? Absolutely not. No, I want Microsoft to continue to double down in the console space. You know, I just get this feeling with Microsoft that when they put out their console, it's like, okay, here it is for those that want it. You know, it doesn't feel to me that it's at the center of Xbox's universe. And I just find that so interesting because Xbox, think about that name, the Xbox. Why is it called box? Because it started as a console. That's what it is. And now it has evolved into, yeah, Xbox is still a thing. The Xbox console is still a thing, but now it's evolved into, but it's really about Game Pass, you know, like that's really at the center of the universe now. And I just don't want to see Sony go down that route because, I mean, we already know why. I talk about it all the time. So, but yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this topic simply because I don't think that there's all that much I can say about it because we're going to have to see. It is worth noting that, you know, PlayStation's share price in Japan or Sony's has reached record levels that it has not seen since the PS2 days. That's a very good sign for the start of the PlayStation 5 generation. And the fact that it has not seen stock prices like that since the PS2 days, I don't know, man. Is the PS5 going to be the next PS2? Is that what it's going to be? I think it can. Morgan, you're saying, heard the news that the PS5 had the best-selling launch for a gaming console of all time. I think it will outsell the PS2 by the end of this generation. I think it's possible, Morgan. I do. I think that it can happen, man. I really do. I think the PS5, the demand is just insane. I don't know how Sony did it, but they figured something out in the middle of the PS4 generation because the hype for the PS4, I think, was carried mainly by like just how badly Xbox did. Like Sony just kept like delivering these haymakers that Xbox just let them deliver because they let themselves open. And Sony was delivering these haymakers left and right that just gave them so much momentum and so much goodwill. Because let's be honest, guys, the first couple years of the PS4, it had some great games, but it didn't really hit its stride until the middle of the generation, and that like really started to grow. To like look at how the generation for the PS4 ended. It ended way stronger than it started. And Sony somehow found a way to carry that momentum into the PS5 to make it just go even further. Guys, do me a favor. Hit that like button. We're very close to 500 likes. We have over 900 people here. Let's see if we can get to 500 likes. And then after that, maybe we can get to 600 likes. Really helps it out. Just have to mention that. And we have OK Kapapa. You're saying the PS5 demand is crazy. I have had the day one PS2, 3, and 4, but I have yet to get the 5. My pre-order status indicates early next year. Well, that is unfortunate that you have to wait, man. But yeah, that is what is crazy here. So I think that, people think that the demand for the PS5 is artificial. I don't think it is at all. Like, I think that if Sony had 15 million consoles that they could put in the hands of gamers right now, just like right now, I think that they would sell all 15 million of those consoles. I do. I think that the demand is absolutely through the roof. I don't think we've seen demand for this like this for a console ever. I really don't. Like, guys, those who've been around maybe longer than I have, you let me know. Has there ever been demand for a console like we're seeing right now? I don't think there has been. I think that the PS5 is breaking new ground. I really think it is. So, yeah, let me know. You guys are saying no, you don't recall. Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, the Switch was pretty good. The PS2, obviously, the 360, even the Wii. But the thing about the Wii is it seemed like that was kind of artificial. That's the thing is, like, I don't think any of this is artificial. Like, people are like, oh, I'm sure Sony's like loving seeing, SNL make skits and whatnot, like of how the PS5 is so hard to come by. But I don't think that's press that Sony wants, man. They don't want, like, they want people talking about their console, but they want them talking about it because they can go out and buy it. You know what I mean? It says a lot. It says a lot about it. And let me tell you, the fact that Sony has yet to reveal console sales, that says a lot as well. I think what that speaks to is the fact that they simply cannot even get close to meeting demand right now. Because if I had to think, like, why would Sony not reveal record-breaking numbers? I'll tell you why. Because they know that it's like impossible for a lot of people to get a console right now. That's why. I mean, I've heard a lot of people tell me before that, they knew that the demand for the PS4 was high, but they don't recall having this much of a struggle, anywhere near this much of a struggle getting their hands on a PS4 near the launch of the PS4. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I'm going to be paying very close attention to it. I want to see it go on to be extremely successful because I think that it will, I think it'll go a long way in ensuring that the console remains relevant. I think it'll go a long way in ensuring that the console remains at the center of PlayStation's gravity. And I think that that's going to go a long way in ensuring we continue to get high quality AAA games that we have come to expect. So, all right, we are going to move on to the next topic here. Probably the last main topic, and that is, will God of War Ragnarok be a cross-gen title? And will it be a smaller $40 title in the vein of, say, Uncharted Lost Legacy or Spider-Man Miles Morales? Is the scalping situation combined with just the amount of PS4 sales that Sony was able to achieve, is this pushing Sony to maybe consider supporting cross-gen for longer than maybe even they were expecting? Jim Ryan did talk about expecting more variations in games and pricing this generation. And I just think that this makes for an interesting conversation simply because I think that God of War Ragnarok is a full-blown AAA title. Because I think that the reality is, I think Sony wants to try to deliver as many, full-blown AAA titles that they can. I just think that they do have to accept that sometimes the reality is they're going to have to probably, and I don't know what to call these games. Do we, like, I said we should coin the term micro AAA games for games like Spider-Man and Miles Morales. And you guys can let me know in the chat if you like that. Micro AAA games. Some people are saying we should just straight up call them AAA games and then call the proper AAA games that Sony releases quadruple A games, right? I don't know. But glorified DLC? No, they're far from glorified, man. I say go play. Go, from what I've heard, people are saying that these games are definitely AAA quality. They're just shorter, basically. They're just shorter, and they just have a little bit less content. And so I don't know. Yeah, we're not going to call it quadruple A. I'm just kind of poking fun there. But Cook X84, you're saying in the event it outsells the PS2, excuse me, doubt it. Historians will claim it was due to the pandemic. You watch. Yeah, I mean, even if that is like, so be it. So be it. If to me, that's a positive that can be gained from this whole thing. Solid Snake, you're saying MBG, Moore's Law is Dead, mentioned that Sony would push for photorealism with God of War Ragnarok. It would be a shame for PS4 users to miss out on this one, but it sounds like the PS5 premium experience. It could be. I don't know, man. I cannot figure out Sony's formula for determining what games are going to be PS5 only or not. And I think God of War is the big one that people are looking towards. Like, okay, is God of War going to be the AAA game that we're looking for? The AAA PS5 only exclusive we're looking for, and I don't know. I really don't know what to think. I want to say that God of War has a higher chance of being full blown, AAA. I don't know why I keep saying that, full blown PS5 exclusive, but I can't figure out Sony's formula because Sony's like, Returnal is going to be PS5 only. Even though that's a game that, in my opinion, like I'm pretty sure that's a game that could run on PS4. And it's being sold at $70. So you would think that that's maybe the type of game that Sony would want to put on PS4 to give it the best possible chance to sell well, because I think it's not, I think Returnal's going to sell well. Well, I don't know. It'll be $70, but I think it has a higher chance of failing due to the fact that it's, just going to be on PS5. It's coming out so soon, and it's $70, and it's not really a game. It's a studio that people are familiar with, but it's not a game that people are familiar with, not an IP that people are familiar with. So it's just strange to me that I don't understand the formula. They're saying Returnal's PS5 only, Ratchet and Clank is PS5 only. Ratchet and Clank is the one that makes the most sense because they're like, hey, technical limitations. This is why it's PS5 only. Gran Turismo 7 is PS5 only. And I don't know, man. I don't know what to expect from God of War Ragnarok. Okay. I say this because, we're seeing Sony market Horizon more than they're marketing, up until this point anyway. We've seen Sony market Horizon more than they've marketed God of War. And that tells me that that's because we can expect Horizon to come out before God of War. And we know that Horizon is going to be on PS4. But the thing about Horizon and God of War that they have in common is they're both targeting 2021. We know Horizon's targeting the later half of 2021. We also know that Horizon is a cross-gen game that's coming out in late 2021, the second half of 2021. So, what that tells me is that we may see God of War Ragnarok be a cross-gen game. I would be okay with that, I guess. It just depends. Again, Sony kind of sold me on the idea of cross-gen, but it depends on really what they're trying to push. If they are really going for photorealistic graphics and they're really trying to push the bar graphically, and they want God of War to be the first game that really showcases this, then I don't know what the limit is at that point. I don't know if that would stop the game from being able to actually function and run on a PS4. But if it was, then I'm sure Sony wouldn't, they'd be like, okay, just make it PS5 only. But, I don't know. Maybe they want a game like Ratchet and Clank to be the one that shows off, hey, here's some of the technical capabilities that the PS5 can deliver that just simply can't be done on the PS4. And maybe they want a game like God of War not to necessarily be the game that shows on a technical level, this is stuff that's only possible on PS5, but maybe they want it to be that graphical showcase, hey, this is, this is what you can, we can achieve graphically on the PS5. That's just whoa. You're saying Returnal has portals as well to different worlds like Ratchet and Clank. Yeah, maybe that's it. I haven't seen that. I would believe it, though. It makes sense. So I could see that being a scenario. I could see that being the reason why Returnal is a PS5 only game. But I don't know. Maybe you guys can let me know in the chat if you have an idea or a better idea than I do of like what the formula is, like what Sony uses to determine like what's going to be on PS5 and what's not. What's going to be on PS4 as well. Chris B, you're saying after Miles Morales, I'm okay with cross-gen. Apparently, Microsoft and CD Projekt Red have issues, but not Sony yet. Yeah, that's the big question yet. I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see what the cutoff is, but I do really believe that's the scalping situation. And because for those who watched my video, like the reason why I mentioned the scalping situation is because that's affecting the bottom line of these consoles, where, especially for the PS5, where the attach rate is not nearly as high as it should be because a lot of these consoles are not in the hands of gamers. A lot of these consoles are just sitting somewhere waiting to be sold, and they're not actually, they're not. And that right there is, I'm telling you, that's another big reason why Sony's not revealing sales, because if they reveal to their shareholders, we sold 4 million consoles or whatever, but the attach rate's like 1 in 4 or like 2 in 4 when it should be like 3 in 4 or 4 in 4, that's going to be really bad. Like their stockholders are going to be like, whoa, what? Like that's just not good. So that's probably why they're waiting. They're probably, if anything, they're probably waiting to reveal sales numbers to their shareholders and whatnot, so that way they can be like, and like they're waiting so that they can get a higher attach rate. So I don't know, guys. It's there's a lot of unknowns. I would like Sony to be a little bit more transparent about this. I mean, look, I don't have a big problem with Jim Ryan, but I won't lie. Like Jim Ryan, he does kind of come off as the kind of person where he will he says like, oh, all of our games are being built from the ground up on the PS5, but then he's also the kind of guy that is like, we believe in generations. And it's like, I would just, all I'm saying is I would just prefer more explanation. I feel like Jim Ryan doesn't say enough. Maybe that works in his benefit. I would like when Jim Ryan does an interview next time to explain, like, what is your formula for deciding what games are, going to be cross-gen versus not. And if he said, well, we want games like God of War and Horizon to be cross-gen because they have the highest sales potential, and, the PS4 install base is too big to ignore, I would appreciate that, because it'd be like, okay, there we go. That explains it right there, right from the horse's mouth. Now we know exactly why. We can infer that, we can assume that, but we don't know exactly. So when it comes to whether or not God of War is going to be the big AAA game or something smaller, I'm anticipating anything, guys. I really am. A lot of people are asking, why would Sony reveal God of War so soon? I think that might be why. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what Sony's expecting in terms of the reaction from God of War. I think there's a couple of telltale signs that let us know this might be a smaller title. I believe it's a bigger one, but I think the fact that they announced it so soon, and the fact that they are, even though development cycles can go quicker, I think it's the fact that they're also not showing much of it yet at all. Although it could be the other way around. That's the thing. This is a two, there's two sides to each coin here. The reason why they may not be showing the game yet at all is because that's just it, is because it's going to blow people away, and they're like, we're going to save this. Like, this is the PS5 game, that's really going to do people in. I hope it's that. If it's leaning more on that side, like, whoa, like, we're not showing this yet because we want it to blow people away, then I think it's safe to say it's going to be a bigger AAA title, not a $40 smaller standalone title. D-Doc, you're saying the scalper situation is getting insane. Do you know, yesterday I saw a dog in a trench coat pre-ordering 2 PS5s. What happened to one per customer? Yeah, D-Doc, it has seemingly reached a new level, and I think that a big reason for that is because of, I think the reason for that is simply because of the pandemic. Like, I think that it's just made it much easier, unfortunately, for scalpers to get a hold of these consoles. And I hope this scalping situation goes away sooner rather than later. Again, I said it in my video, and I'll say it again. The sooner Sony and Microsoft can saturate the market with these consoles, the sooner the scalping situation goes away, and it's a non-issue. Okay. All right. I said that I was going to talk about my experience with Demon's Souls. I think I'm going to forego that for now, simply because we're hitting the 2-hour mark, and I've been trying to not let the podcasts go on as long, especially during times where I feel like I don't have that much more to say, but I feel that the chat Q&A is a little bit more important. I will probably do a standalone review for Demon's Souls. I'm unsure though, because I don't know. Sometimes there's a great interest in my game reviews, and then other times there's just no interest whatsoever. And it's really difficult for me to tell, well, should I keep doing game reviews? I don't want to keep doing it if people don't care about it. So it could just be the fact that it's Demon's Souls and it's just not as wide appealing, So maybe I'll give it its own video. I'm sure I'm going to be looking for some content to make over the next week or two, since things are slowing down. Everybody's going to be enjoying their holiday, and the gaming industry is going to go quiet, just like everything else. Just got to stretch here a little bit. All right, so what we're going to do now, before we, hold on. I'm going to enable slow mode. All right, let's finish this podcast out with a chat Q&A. So Sean, you're saying you watch all of my game reviews? Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Any questions you guys may have, anything at all, feel free to ask. I will try my best to answer them. Let me see here. All right, you're saying MBG, it should be very easy to block those scalper bots by inserting a CAPTCHA before checking out and paying for a console online. Yeah, I agree. That's what I've heard as well. I don't know why they don't do that. I'm sure Sony would love to talk to their retail partners to try to make, and Microsoft to make that a thing that they can all implement, but Sony has only so much control. Any news on Project Awakening or Babylon Falls? I don't have any news on either of them, especially Project Awakening. I think Project Awakening looks great. I do not know what's going on with that game. At this point, I think it's just a PS5 game. I could be wrong, but anything I say is just an assumption, honestly. So, let me see. You're saying after The Last of Us 2 releases, do you have any concerns about Horizon 2? For example, they might go super woke. No, I just take each game as it comes. I'm not going to, just because I didn't like the story of The Last of Us, I'm not going to assume that every story that's told now from Sony Studios is going to be one I don't like. I mean, it was just a matter of time until I played a single player game from Sony and I'm like, I don't really like this game that much. I didn't like the story that was told. So no, I'm not expecting that. I think I'm going to like Horizon. I think people get a little bit too extreme with the whole woke thing. I mean, it's definitely a thing that exists, but I just don't really, if I don't like something, I just try to avoid it. That's all. You're saying, why is Xbox so bad and boring? I don't have an answer to that. Do you think Days Gone 2 will be announced in 2021? I think it could be, yeah. I think maybe at the very least we could see a tease. I think it just depends on how far along in development it is. But I think Days Gone 2 is a thing, and I think I wouldn't be shocked if we see it announced in 2021. PS5 will have a better 2021. Xbox will have a better 2022. I'm not so sure. I don't know that Xbox is going to have a better year than Sony in general this upcoming generation. I think they would have to catch Sony off guard in order for that to happen, or Sony would have to screw something up. CokeX84, again, you're saying Sony announces Sonic Adventures 3 at E3 as a timed exclusive. Been donating because I find you to be legit. Take care. Well, thank you so much, CokeX. I do appreciate those super chats, man. Really means a lot. Goes a long way in helping me out here. Did you try Final Fantasy VII, or are you still not a fan? Please, the story is the best. I'm not against it. It's been hard, man. It's been hard. Maybe when like the second game is out and like the whole thing's complete, I'll just play all of them like straight through. That's a possibility. We have Nintendo Power. Reason CAPTCHA hasn't been used by retailers is that Google had to recently change their net filter because bots have gotten better at image recognition. Wow. Yeah, that would explain it. I don't follow that stuff so closely. So that's why I'm not, I mean, I'm not convinced that the solution is that simple. I think there's always more to it, but I believe that, man. And that's just kind of sad. That's sad, the lengths that these people will go to, I guess. When will we see Elden Ring in 2021? Yes, I guarantee it. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I mean, come on. How could we not see Elden Ring next year? At that point, the game's just a myth. MBG, I've said it once and I'll say it again. What if Resident Evil Village runs better on PS5? What then? Oh, well, you better believe I'm going to talk about it. You better believe we're gonna dig up some old rumors that apparently. But I'm excited for Resident Evil 8. I hope it runs fine. I think that Resident Evil 8 will be a test, honestly, considering the rumors surrounding it that it was having trouble running on PS5 and it runs so much better on the Series X. We'll find out. If it comes out and it does struggle on the PS5, then maybe there was some truth to those rumors after all. Do you think Horizon Zero Dawn is overrated? I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty removed from when I played the game. I don't think it's overrated. I think that it just, it was something that was such a big surprise. Like, I think one of the big things that Horizon Zero Dawn had going for it to help kind of pump it up to this big status is it was a new IP and it was something completely fresh from Sony. So I think that there were some things that were a little bit more easily forgivable when it was being reviewed and talked about. And I think Horizon 2 is going to have some big shoes to fill. Like, it's not going to have that advantage anymore. It's not going to have, it's not a new IP anymore. And it's going to be very similar in many ways to the first game. So it's going to have to be more refined and more impressive in some areas. So I don't think that means it was overrated. I think it just had a little bit more going for it than, say, a sequel does. Anthony Birch is a God of War writer. Are you worried? I don't know who that is. Like, I can't say whether I would be worried because I don't know who that is. Apologies if I missed some of your questions, guys. You might have to ask them again because it like keeps bringing me down. Let me see. Are you God, MBG? No, I am not. What's your most anticipated PS5 exclusive? Right now, I want to say it's God of War. I mean, I feel like that's the one that's furthest away, but it's announced, and so that's my most anticipated easily. Behind that is Horizon for sure. I'm looking forward to all of them. But yeah, MBG, if people can't handle The Last of Us 2 gore and story, can they really handle Silent Hill? I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see with Silent Hill. I'm trying not to talk about it anymore because people seemingly get like pissed off when I do. So I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm just like going to keep it as maybe it's real, maybe it's not. I have no idea. I'll wait until we, get something of substance from it before I talk about it again. I would love for it to be real, though. MBG, the UK is working towards not allowing tech like console, GPUs, etc., to be resold for more than the original retail price in order to combat scalping. Do you think more countries will try doing this? I don't know if they will. I hope they do, though. Do you think a Death Stranding sequel will come out in the future? I don't. I think Death Stranding is a one-time only game. I would be surprised, but anything's possible. Do you think this trend with two consoles, disc edition and digital edition, will last for a while? Apparently, the disc edition has been sold much more often than the digital. I think it will last. Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to have to because I think there's always going to be a need for a disc console because there's just some people who just can't do digital, So I think the need will always be there. Maybe in the far, far, far future, if consoles are even a thing. I mean, maybe eventually there won't be, but that'll have to be like when 90% or 99% of people are all digital, Shot me down again. I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077 a lot because I'm a sucker for Cyberpunk genre. I think Cyberpunk genre is too overlooked. What Sony first-party studio would you like to test out the Cyberpunk genre and why? I don't know. I'd say I'd maybe Sucker Punch, simply because they've proven that they can really kind of like go from different, one thing to another in terms of like time period. And, you imagine an open world game. I would like to see what Sucker Punch could do. Maybe Insomniac Games. When do you think Sony will release the DualSense back buttons? That's a good question. I don't know. You would think that they would be out already, right? They're available for PS4. Why not PS5? Don't you think the faster we move onto PS5 exclusives, the better? Cross-gen isn't limited to just graphics. AI and game design need to improve too. No, I 100% agree. If it was up to me, all PS5 games would be exclusive. But I'd probably lose Sony a lot of money if I did that. So from my perspective, no, the better, the sooner we go to PS5 only exclusives and all of them being exclusive, the better it's going to be in general. We have Magnum Visuals. You're saying, if the Series X tools narrative would be true, wouldn't third-party games look different on both systems, and wouldn't they be delayed on the Series X? Yeah, I get what you're saying with that. I think it's this idea that, like, if the tools aren't ready, how are they even able to get their game looking anywhere near close to what we're seeing on the PS5? I just think that the power of the Series X was overhyped. That's what I think. I think that a lot of people were just basically falling for the 12 T-flops, world's most powerful marketing narrative, and not paying enough attention to what Mark Cerny is saying about the PS5 and how it's a zero bottleneck machine, and it was literally crafted and fine-tuned specifically to make game development easier and better and more efficient, and to also enable video game creators to think more outside the box. I think that's all. I don't think tools have really anything to do with it. I'm going to be honest. A Dirt 5 developer literally straight up said, like, no, the tools aren't really an issue, or that I wouldn't say that the tools are less matured on the Xbox. That he straight up said that. So I don't think the tools have anything to do with it. I think it's just something that is helping, people cope with the reality right now. And hey, if the day comes where Series X does have better performing games and better looking games, people are going to try to attack me, because I'm telling you, if that day comes, they're going to try to attack me. They're going to try to attack us. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just going to laugh my ass off, because I'm going to be like, congratulations, guys. You finally got what you were supposed to get day one. So if it's not until next year or not until 2022, where like suddenly Microsoft is finally impressing people and games have a slight advantage on the Series X, like they're not going to get a cookie for that. Like, this is what was promised with your console day one. People had to wait for it. I hope it happens for them, because I mean, geez, like right now it's just, did I hear the rumor of a PS5 Lite? No, I did not. I did not hear that rumor. I don't know what that is. Do you think we'll play as Batman in Gotham Knights? No, I don't think so, believe it or not. Cody, you're saying I gotta go. Merry Christmas, MBG. See you later. Well, Merry Christmas to you, man. Thank you for hanging out. MBG, Kenna looks great, don't you think so? From Portugal, big fan, great fan. Thank you so much, man. It's crazy to hear that people listen to me from all over the world sometimes. It's mind-blowing. But yeah, I do think Kenna looks really good. Let me see what else. All right, I'll answer a few more. Do you have your adaptive triggers turned off in Call of Duty? Some people suggest to turn them off in multiplayer, which is a shame, because I love the adaptive triggers. I actually do. When I play Call of Duty multiplayer, it's knowing that other people have them turned off, they have like an advantage where they're able to just like aim down sight maybe a little bit quicker. I turn them off for that reason. Also, I will admit that the left trigger that you use to aim down sights, I think they made it. They should lower the pressure on that, because like it gives your finger a workout. So at some point you do got to turn it off, But it's really cool though. Like when I was playing the single player, I had it on the whole time just to get that extra immersion. I'm not reading that one. What do you think the second team at Guerrilla Games is working on? Look, what do I think they're working on? I think they're working on a shooter. What I want that shooter to be is a SOCOM reboot. I am dying to know what they're working on. I'm going to be disappointed if it's like a multiplayer game set in the Horizon universe, only because I don't think Horizon needs that. You know, I think what Sony needs is a good shooter, something that's more competitive, more multiplayer focused, because they're knocking it out of the park when it comes to the single player experiences. But I would just like to see something like that from them. So I think they're working on a shooter. I want it to be a SOCOM reboot. Any news on Naughty Dog's factions? No, I'm patiently waiting to hear about that. I mean, it's really strange to me that they haven't said anything about it. I think they're trying to distance it from The Last of Us Part 2 so they can mitigate the negative feedback they get. Because keep in mind, Sony like really went on like damage control mode with The Last of Us Part 2 by like turning off comments, likes and dislikes. And I think they just want to avoid that again. And I think they're just waiting to talk about it until they're like more, further away from The Last of Us 2 video game. That's my assumption anyway. But I hope we do hear about it because I am looking forward to that. Saying, hi, MBG, I got the PS5 digital version. Well, good job, man. Glad to hear that. MBG, will you play Mr. Krabs overdoses on ketamine and dies? No, I don't think I'm going to play that, man. Doesn't sound like my kind of game. Adrian, you're saying, are you ready to make some innovations of the channel? Or, to the channel next year? Happy holidays. Yeah, I mean, I think that the channel is going to continue to grow naturally and organically. I think that, it's... My goal is to continue to slowly branch out and try to talk about more content and get people more comfortable with, like, even though it is a PlayStation focused channel, like we can still talk about other things in the gaming space. I'm hoping to do more game streams. I'm hoping to do more game reviews. These are all aspirations I have for the channel. So yeah, I think 2021 is going to be a big year for the channel. Hopefully you guys stick around and continue to support it. He probably means the PlayStation 5 Slim. When do you think it's coming out? Yeah, okay. Slim, I don't know. It would be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing a Slim console of the PS5 sooner rather than later. Maybe in like a year and a half, maybe 2 years, because I mean, I think the biggest problem that a lot of people have with the PS5 is the way it looks. There's just some people who do not like the way the PS5 looks. Also, what was up with Herman Hulst, the head of Sony's first-party publishing? What was up with him posting a picture of his PS5 upside down? People were telling me that he was doing that because it's just a lot easier to get to the disk drive and see the disk drive, which that makes sense, but that was really bizarre. Like, it was really strange. I don't know what was up with that. I thought it was kind of funny. But, let me see here. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast, guys. Pretty hungry right now, so I got to go, figure out what I'm going to do there. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Make sure you hit the like button before you head out. Let's see if we can at least get to 600 likes before the podcast ends. That would really help it out a lot. And I want to just give a big thank you to everybody who has been showing support on the channel. Again, going through a little bit of a tough time right now. Got some stuff going on, and the support means the world to me. You guys literally allow me to do what I do here on the channel, and I simply couldn't do it without you. So huge shout out to everybody who supports the channel. Massive shout out to all of my channel members. You guys really help me out more than you know. And yeah, I also am saying this now because, and yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. Hope everybody has a good time. I'm also saying this now because I'm unsure if we will be doing a podcast next Sunday. It really depends on what there is to talk about. If there's just simply nothing going on and nothing to talk about, I'm not going to bother trying to force a podcast because we know that everything's going to kind of go quiet. And, I'm assuming everything's going to go quiet anyway. Everybody's going to be enjoying their holiday. And I'm thinking if I don't do the podcast next Sunday, I think January 3rd is the next Sunday after that. That could be when it returns. I don't want to have to take 2 weeks off of the podcast, obviously. So I'm hoping by that time, if we do have to take next week off, there'll be a lot more to talk about. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And leave the video a like. We have one more super chat before I go. Patrick, you're saying, hi, MBG. I just want to say thanks for a good year. I like your content, so keep up the good work. Merry Christmas all the way from Sweden. Well, thank you so much, man. Appreciate that super chat and appreciate all the kind words you guys have thrown my way today when it comes to the content. It makes me feel really good to know that there's so many of you out there that do enjoy and genuinely appreciate the content. And I'm thinking that 2021 is going to be even better. This was a great year for the channel. I mean, I know that 2020 was kind of a crap year in general, but this was a great year for the channel, a great year for gaming. We got the PS5, got the next gen consoles, got a lot of great games. So I think that we have, I think that we have a lot to look forward to next year. I think it's going to be even better. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it. Leave it a like before you go. And until next time, guys, take care.